Hello, everybody. We're going to start the meeting. If you could take your seats, and we'll get started. We have to announce that it's been recorded. This is a regular scheduled meeting of the Franklin Township Environmental Commission. In accordance with the Open Public Meeting Act, PL 1975, Chapter 231, adequate notice of this meeting has been posted. Roll call, Maria Santiago Volunteer. Series, Easy. Robin Sudan. Here. And Lee. Andrews, I'm here. Paul Walensky, absent. Ted Chase. Here. And Jessica Johnson. She's going to be absent. We all have copies of the agenda. We're going to just, in terms of the Environmental Commission Chair report, Paul Walensky could not be here. I'm the VP, and I don't have anything in particular that's new. So we're going to move beyond that one, and we're going to approve, ask for a motion to approve the December 5 minutes.
I'll make a motion to approve them as presented.
Get a second? No?
I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved and second that we approve the December 5, 22 EC minutes. All in favor, let it know by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, the ayes have it. All right. Now we're going to open the meeting up to the public. We have a motion.
I move to open to the public.
Second.
I'll second.
Moved and second that we open the meeting to the public. So we're going to limit the comments to 3 minutes. We have a timer, and if for any reason we feel adequate time has not been allowed, we'll consider that at the time. So when you come up, we ask that you sign in, but when you come up, speak into the mic there, and we will let you know when we think the time is up. Okay, who wants to be first? Right, they want to wait until later. We want to make sure that the second call. Okay.
Debbie Stewart, 2 Farrington Plaza. This is just a comment. Thank you so much for all your work on the tree ordinances. I'm not that familiar with them, but what you brought to the town council last meeting, I think was great. Something I was not familiar with, probably a lot of people here, the $30 to the $300 per tree. And whatever you were talking about last time, I don't know if you're going over it this time, the size of the tree, it's such a great learning experience. And I know you all have been at this for years and years and years. And we apologize for being so late to the game, but thank you for all your hard work on behalf of Franklin Township and all of us and the environment and the earth. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay. If there are no more comments, with a motion to close the meeting.
Move to close.
Second.
Okay, then moved and second that we close the meeting to the public. All in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, ayes have it. So we're back into the regular agenda. Correspondence, I don't have any. Okay, there is no correspondence. Now we're down to review of site plan application for the Franklin Township Planning Board and Zoning Board. And Ted, is this where you will? Yeah. Okay. Ted Chase did review that, and he will share his comments and observations.
Okay, I wrote this up today, so the commission hasn't had much time, and I don't know whether many in the audience have had a chance to see the latest plans. The plan does show in my opinion, an attempt to take seriously prior comments on development of this site. This is the B9 warehouse, I'm sure everybody knows, particularly with reference to the status of Metlers Road as a scenic roadway and the presence of substantial housing on its other side. The establishment of a berm along Metlers Road up to 10 feet high and heavily planted with native trees and shrubs is as substantial a response to the complaints of those residing on the other side of Metlers Road as could be expected, which is not to say that I expect everybody to be satisfied. There is also a berm 5 to 6 feet high along Schoolhouse Road with a solid fence 6 feet high atop it. A fence would not be allowed in the scenic corridor. Even more so, a sound barrier is seen along the New Jersey Turnpike, and I-295 would not be allowed. Canal Walk residents have expressed concern about possible flooding from the pond and wetlands which drain across Metlers Road into a stream running through Canal Walk. The undeveloped portions of this site should be kept with vegetation which retards and absorbs runoff, preferably native grasslands, of which New Jersey has a shortage, although this site is probably not large enough for grassland birds, which we have particularly at Negri Napodi. The plan proposes a, quote, constructed wetland, apparently with a pond and a bioretention basin, both planted with red maple trees as well as various shrubs. The trees in the constructed wetland actually are not identified, but from the number proposed and their use in the bioretention basin, I assume they are also red maples. And I'm just, we do want to ask, are these able to grow in a frequently flooded area yet survive through a summer drought? But I know there are maples which grow in freshwater wetlands, so these, I hope, are those. Some of the plant species shown on the plan are not listed in the plant list, HMNB, TCC, PYCR, and there is, I kept looking for the right word. What I used was puffery, and I'm not completely convinced that's the right word. Calling cardinal flowers and marsh marigolds, quote, evergreen shrubs, unquote. Anybody who knows cardinal flowers know that they're simply a perennial plant that prefers slightly damp areas, and the leaves are fairly flat to the ground. And duckweed, they call an ornamental grass. Duckweed is a floating flowering plant seen in backwaters of rivers. Maintenance of these areas is an important concern. At one extreme, the wetland plants cannot be allowed to dry out completely during a summer drought, while at the other, accumulation of fallen branches and leaves cannot be allowed to fill up the space and diminish the basic function of retaining runoff. And I think a key question is, who will be responsible for necessary maintenance, the owner or the lessee? Given that the normal practice for these warehouses is to build them on spec and then find somebody to rent it afterwards. The usual warning against white pines, Pinus strobus, as buffer species, and this is something the Environmental Commission says regularly, because white pines eventually lose their lower branches and then not so much of a buffer anymore. But it's less important in this case than usual, since where they're proposed along Schoolhouse Road, they'll be backed up by the 6-foot-high solid fence. Oh, I observed that eastern red cedar, which is highly native to the township, is also a good buffer, though in natural areas, in eventual succession, it's replaced by deciduous species. The major concerns of Canal Walk residents are air and noise pollution. Heavy plantings will absorb some air pollution. Noise regulations are not an effective response to warehouse traffic since the most piercing sound involved, the beep-beep of vehicles backing up, is intermittent. We recommend that the Planning Board and Council limit hours of operation to 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. with no entry or departure of trucks between 10 p.m. and 6 a.m. Anti-idling signs are shown every 7 loading docks. Arnie, is this sufficient frequency, do you think? No, we should ask for maybe every third.
Thank you. Yeah, I was just looking at that. I think you might have said, we just got this document today that Ted so greatly wrote up, so we're all reviewing it now. But I think every 7 loading docks isn't enough. I was trying to look in our ordinance that we were preparing to see if we had said at every loading dock. I'd have to take a look at that. But they also need to be at the office where the truck drivers report. So there's an office, they have to get out and bring their papers, so it's got to be at the office as well. It's supposed to be throughout the parking lot area where they're circulating to see where they're, wherever they're going and where they're going to be parking on site. There should be one at the entrance and one at the exit also. Tara, do you remember what it was? I was just looking at an old draft of it as far as if it was every loading dock, or I don't, we'd have to take a look at that and see.
I don't think it was specified, but
Yeah,
I would say every second or third, but
I would think that would be enough, especially
Yeah.
since that they are also going to be getting out of the truck, going to the office to report, and it should be at the office door there, as well as when they enter the facility. It should be posted right where they can all see it when they come into the facility, onto the site. Yeah.
bicycle racks are shown in both car parking areas. We recommend also a facility for minor repairs to encourage workers to bicycle to work, particularly along scenic roadways with less traffic. Electric vehicle charging stations are shown only in the car parking area along the larger building. Some should also be in the car parking area in front of the smaller building. The drainage plan shows in the loading area, this is not really an environmental comment, but something I noticed, shows 2 drain lines, I think one picking up the roof drains and one the pavement drains, running in opposite directions with opposite slopes, one draining toward Schoolhouse Road and one toward the bioretention basin. This seems odd. So that's what I have written up so far. I didn't think to put in anything about the roof. I'm sure Ms. Saddam will have some comments on that and perhaps other comments, and I'm sure the public will have some further comments later. But I did want to describe the berm and the plantings.
Ted, if I could just make a couple of other comments here, and then I'll pass it on to whoever else wants to speak. I would think that there should be something, we should make a recommendation that the plan also require that the facility or facilities, however many there are, buildings, have ample space for the trucks when they get to the site to park on site or be on site before they go to the loading docks, so that they don't have to be in line on the street. Being in line on the street allows them to pollute more because it's not considered idling when they're in line on the street. And it causes, as a lot of people in Canal Walk and other places know, that it's dangerous for regular car drivers to have to go navigate their ways around the trucks. So the point being, the parking lot area should be large enough to accommodate all trucks that are coming. And the other comment that I had was on, you mentioned in here, Ted, that the beep, beep, beep of vehicles backing up is intermittent, and you recommend that the council limits operation of 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. Those are OSHA regulations that require that beep, beep, beep. So not a lot that can be done about that. There are times when strobe lights have been used on vehicles, but instead of lights, and OSHA has approved those. But that's usually for smaller vehicles on site, usually not for large trucks.
Well, I knew that the beep, beep, beep is an OSHA requirement, and that's why I felt the only thing was not to have trucks backing up during the hours when people are trying to sleep.
To that point, Arnie, I had a conversation 10 days ago with the Township Attorney in Piscataway, and they have successfully required hours of operation to limit the sound annoying people. They have also declared certain streets around warehouses to be no stopping, no standing areas, so that can't be considered an active roadway. If they stand there, they can't be idling. So that's something that we could do. But they can't be, if they're moving, but they can't be stopped if we can declare those zones no stopping, no standing, and put up the appropriate signage. And the other comment I would add is that the roof, we highly recommend that a good portion of both of these roofs be some combination of solar and green with 120,000 square feet each. There's plenty of room there to put in solar and or green.
I would like to also suggest something that is related to electrification. It's good that they have charging stations for the passengers' vehicles, but what is also coming up in the future, rather near future, are electrified trucks. And to be ready for that is a huge advantage. I would suggest that they have prepared 200 kilowatt capacity for that situation, that if somebody comes with an electric truck, they can install charging capability.
Okay.
And the trucks, they need much higher input, so that's why I would suggest 200 kilowatt.
Okay.
If they are wired up for that, it doesn't have to be a charging station per se, but have the capacity installed.
Okay.
I would put it as a suggestion.
That makes sense. For the roof, they will be required to meet the solar-ready roof, but you want it to be a combination of green roof and solar roof.
Put on.
Right.
Yeah, that, whether it's the owner or the tenant, utilize the roof for solar, some combination of solar and green. The stormwater runoff is really a big issue for us in New Jersey. We don't have a stormwater utility in Franklin yet, which would provide more requirements. But in the meantime, we can be asking these developers to please do what they can so that we're not driving through 2 feet of water when the next IDA comes along.
That makes sense. I also, Ted, did you have any comments in there, or did we have any about pervious pavement? Did they propose any pervious?
They
I'm just-
do, yeah, I focus on it. I'm sorry, I should have brought all the plans with me.
I have them on the screen. That's okay, they're on the screen.
I think particularly...
Are these for the old plans? Oh, got it.
Yeah.
Sorry. Okay, hold on, I'm in the wrong one. Go ahead, Ted.
Yeah, they have some pervious pavement, particularly at the rear of the larger building, as I recall. I
Okay.
couldn't quote exactly how much.
I can look at our previous letter to see if it was in there. I was just wondering.
I remember it was, I think they even proposed some in the first set of plans,
Yeah.
and we asked for more.
Okay, okay. But you didn't see any change from what you recall? Any additional, yeah,
I'd have to have the two plans to
Okay,
compare,
all
and
right.
as I say, I forgot to focus on that.
That's all right,
But
yeah,
I did
no.
see that it was there.
okay. And then you said something about the bicycle racks, I just missed that one.
Oh, they do show bicycle racks in both of the, what I call the car parking areas. If you see that, you get there, you see where there's a dark band at the lower edge of the car parking area, somewhere in that vicinity. They do show a bicycle rack, and that's also where there are 4 charging stations.
Right, okay, all right, okay. That was my only question.
No. No.
Does anyone else on the commission have any questions or comments or anything on this plan and based on Ted's review?
We've made comments about the trees. I think just to reiterate that perennial flowering plants are not trees and duckweed is not a shrub. That's pretty drastic. Then I really hope the planning board can go over that with a fine tooth, or the office can go over that with a fine tooth comb.
Well, I hope to embarrass somebody on that.
I just have one question or comment. I noticed, Ted, you mentioned the beep beep of the vehicles backing up. My understanding is the big semi-trucks don't have the beep beep or are not required to have that. Does anyone know for sure? I've kind of heard different things.
Arnie knows about this.
Pass him the microphone.
Sorry, I was at another meeting.
Okay.
About a minute before you got here, it was, and talked about how it's OSHA required for backing up. And there's the possibility of strobe lights used, but that's usually on smaller vehicles that are able to use those. But the plan that Ted talked about, so that it's not, there's no backing up required during sleeping hours. What did I say? Allowed, not allowed. I'm not sure how that can be done, but it's an idea.
You have to use a microphone, I'm sorry.
That I don't, I've never heard that.
I heard the tractor trailers don't have any beeping at all. Whether they don't even need flashing,
Well,
there's no requirement for beeping.
If that's the case, then problem
I guess we should
solved.
find out. Yeah.
Certainly Canal Walk residents have talked to us about hearing the beeps from Amazon.
And hours of operation is a way we can control that.
Right. If we've completed that site review, we'll move on to the other parts of the agenda. And of course, we are open to the public much later, and so over your comment, make your notes. New business, report from subcommittees.
Educational committee, we have moved in planning the first movie of the season. It will be, we are suggesting February 1st. We have been given 3 dates in February, and since we wanted to do it in January, I thought there is no reason why we cannot do it on February 1st. It's a Wednesday. 6. I think we can do 6, and we would be projecting a few short films from the Story of the Stuff series. We went through the exercise of getting the American River, but the problem is that they need large audience. Okay, we are not guaranteeing it. And they are collecting lots of money for projecting it. So February 1st, and we would like to have few of us so that we can create a panel and engage in discussion with the audience. Certainly one of the movies I would like to show is The Story of the Plastic Bottle, because during the last meeting here in this room, somebody raised concern about quality of water, And that movie is right on spot about that. And on top of that, we can also show Story of Plastic, or one of those in the series, the story of clothing,
Just a question on the panel. Is there any chance we might try to get somebody from Rutgers, from the Climate Institute, to be part of that? Make the panel a little more interesting? You and I were just at that session. We could reach out to some of those women, see if they have someone they recommend. You'd rather us just do it ourselves?
Yes, that's possible, but yeah, we can look into that.
And the American River, we could look for another venue in town, because it's supposed to be a really, really well-made movie, the story of the Passaic River. And if we can show it here in Franklin, I think it would be worthwhile. We might be able to get a decent draw. I'll give some thought about where we might be able to do that. I mean, we could possibly do it at one of the schools in an auditorium.
Consolata, the Board Administrative Complex, has a very nice multipurpose room that's a community center, and you make reservations through the township.
How many people can it seat, do you guess?
Hundreds, 400 probably.
Well, let's talk to, is that Anjac or Sustainable Jersey? One of those two is the one releasing the film, so.
Anjak was, I think, just the client who showed the movie recently as part of their activity. I don't think that Anjak owns it or something.
But they may have a contact we could check with.
We could also.
We do have the contact.
We could see maybe if, like, Hillsborough's Green Team or Montgomery's is interested, because I know they also have film series, and so that would maybe help with them. Maybe we could partner with them and get people from their towns as well.
Joint project,
Yeah,
definitely.
I think that maybe could draw more people in, and
Do you have a
I
connection
do,
with
I have
them?
both, I do, yeah,
Oh,
so
that'd
I
be
could reach
wonderful.
out
Yeah.
to them, yep.
Great.
Yeah, we can make it as a second of the series.
Yeah. Well, and if we all work together too, it all counts towards all of our sustainable Jersey requirements, so it helps with that, you
Yes.
know. I can reach out to them.
Do we need to have a motion on the February 1st date?
Do you want a motion, Walter?
Yes,
or-
we should.
Okay. So I move that we book February 1st for film series in our library for the story of the stuff.
I'll second that.
First, we've heard,
Story of the stuff.
okay. So February 1st, 23. We've had a motion and a second. All in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
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 Any opposed, abstain? Thank you. Motion. Any other subcommittee?
Yeah,
Yeah.
communications, I just wanted to check back with Tara. Can we get that email list? And did you have a chance to talk to Krista about us putting current topics out there on the website so we could have a little blurb about what's on the agenda to describe it, so people can look it up rather than just reading the agenda?
I did. We have to still work on that to see like how much it's going to entail and the updating and things, but we're in talks, so I'll
Okay.
keep you posted.
Thank you.
But what was the first thing you asked? I'm sorry, I just forgot.
About the mailing list, the email
The
list.
mailing list, yes, I'll get you the mailing list. So far, we have the mailing list from the event we had, and only a few signups at some of the meetings, but I can combine them all. so.
And that's a good reminder also to everyone in the room that we have a sign-up sheet up there, and if you will sign in with your email address, we can send you Environmental Commission news from us.
Including invitation for our stream cleanup, which has been booked for April 15th, Saturday.
And Tara, the last thing for Communications Committee is we were going to check on our resolutions, that Anne Marie McCarthy, the clerk, should have all of them.
Yes, and I did send that to her, and she is gathering all of
Great.
it as we speak and sending it to IT. Yep.
Thank you very
So
much.
she's working on that. Yep, no
That's it.
problem.
Nothing else from Communications.
No other, we've ended the subcommittee reports. If so, we can talk about the tree replacement ordinance.
So we did have our first meeting of the Shade Tree Commission and Environmental Commission's joint subcommittee, which is members from Shade Tree Commission and Environmental Commission looking for how to work on comprehensively updating the tree removal ordinance. So we had our first meeting last week. We started by putting together a list of what we would like to see, what changes we would like to see in the ordinance, so like a group list kind of. We're also looking at other ordinances, and that committee is going to be going through our existing ordinance as well as a guide that I sent to everyone about, kind of how to put it together. And send all the comments so I can compile them all together, and then we can go over, bit by bit. So we are working on it, and it's important that the Environmental Commission works on it jointly with the Shade Tree Commission so that we really make sure that when we do the update, it's appropriate and, it satisfies all of our concerns and needs. So we're working on it.
Yeah, so as somebody said at the beginning of the meeting in the open public part of it, about the $30 to $300, that's something that the council has already approved. But this commission also sent a letter to the council about two other changes that we were hoping to get done sooner rather than later, because the process of the subcommittee going through the whole tree removal ordinance could take several months. So one of them had to do with the size of the trees. Right now in the ordinance, if they knock down trees that are 3 7/8 inches, it doesn't count as a tree. It has to be 4 inches in diameter or more, 3 inches from the base, or it's not considered a tree. So that was one of the changes, and then there was another one that had to do with, there was a sentence taken out about, Robin, I'll let you talk about that one, all right? It had to do with just a sentence about 25% of trees removal.
In the earlier version of the tree ordinance, prior to the current version, a developer was required to replace trees he removed according to a township schedule. But if they chose not to replace, they could pay their way out by putting money in our tree fund at the rate of $30 a tree. Prior to 2015, the ordinance stated you could not buy your way out for more than 25% of your tree obligation. The other 75% you either had to leave or plant. In 2015, that 25% cap was removed, which has given developers over the last 7 years the ability to buy their way out of their total tree obligation. So our request to the township is to put the cap back.
So you piqued my interest on one outstanding item, which was the idling ordinance. When you sent that to the council, did you CC me on it? Because I don't remember seeing it, but it's possible I missed the email. Yeah, or did it go to Bob?
Sorry. So I'm going to speak about that, but the attorney is reviewing it, and I do have some comments on it. So it's
Okay.
not yet gone to the council because it's still going through the attorney review.
Okay, and then the second thing is those two changes, which I know we've talked about. I think you'll find a lot of support from council. Are those articulated separately? Because I know there's a lot of tree stuff in my email. Is there language around those two specifically?
There was a letter that we sent a week or so ago, 2 weeks ago, that Tara sent to Bob Warnlocker that addressed the $30 to $300, although that's already been approved, but then also the 25%, as well as the tree size, where instead of the tree being defined by a 4-inch diameter, we're requesting that it be 2.5 inches in diameter. So this was a letter that those two items were addressed, that we hope to get those approved, changed in the ordinance, and then the subcommittee is going to review the full ordinance, and like I said, that could take several months, but, we're losing trees that are not defined as trees, and developers are getting away with knocking down potentially hundreds of trees that they don't have to pay anything for them.
Because they don't count as
Because they don't count as trees, plus, the $30 or $300. We hope that both of these things will help dissuade them from knocking down as many trees, and because it's a substantial change in cost to them for that. It might be just a matter of the price of doing business for them, but it's a substantial price, and it'll be more money into the tree fund that will help us be able to plant more trees in Franklin all around the town.
Yeah, so
And also, just one other thing, we're hoping that money also, who knows, could go towards hiring an arborist for the township and other things to really be able to maintain the trees in Franklin Township.
I don't see the letter particularly, so if you can resend it. I think because I'm on this as liaison, I get all the background, and I don't know that I know the final product, which then I can follow up on. And I'm losing it. If I'm on it, I'm losing it, or maybe I'm not getting it. And I didn't make it to the last meeting, so I didn't see
And it
the
was sent
minutes.
in an actionable fashion, so.
Okay, great.
It showed the cross out, add language, so it shouldn't take a lot of interpretation.
Okay, great, awesome, thank you.
So any further comments on the? We also have on the agenda here an intern for spring 20 semester.
You just got to talk in it.
Okay, sorry.
There you go.
I'll repeat myself. The next item is an intern for spring 2023 semester.
So we did get an intern for the spring 2023 semester. Her name is Rena Daves, and she is very excited to start. So she is a senior at Rutgers, and she is majoring in environmental policy, institutions, and behaviors. So she is very excited to start with us. She's going to start coming to the meetings in January, and I think she's going to be a big help with, one of the things she really likes to do, she said, is to analyze data. So, which is great, if that's what she likes. So, but she's very personable, and she's got a lot of energy, so I'm excited to have her. So she'll be here from January until the end of the spring semester.
Maybe with her love for data, so we get to work on the tree ordinance, and we're looking at some of that software we talked about and calculating our canopy.
Yes, that is something she could do.
That would be wonderful.
Yep, that would be right up her alley. So I'm excited about that, and she'll be starting soon.
I just have a question. There's some, I guess, changes, if you will, with universities, et cetera, regarding interns, whether they be paid or non-paid. Is that an issue for us, or is that?
It's not. So this internship through Rutgers, it's an unpaid internship, and they do 125 hours with us, but they are insured through Rutgers. And there is some documents that they have to fill out through the township just because they will be here. But no, it's because they're getting credit for that amount of, hour per hour, it's okay.
All right, thank you. All right, if we can, we'll move to the green roof orders.
That subcommittee is going to be meeting after January 9th when Paul is back, and we have a lot of material out to all of the members to review, to see the green roof ordinances that are in effect in a lot of the major cities already. And so we'll be reviewing those carefully to start proposing an ordinance for Franklin for sustainable roofs. That could be a combination of green and solar, green, solar, and cool, but there's lots of precedent out there for us. We just need to do our homework. So more news in a couple of weeks.
All right, thank you. All right, we can move right along to old business. Identification of goals for 23, scheduling of discussion.
So A and B really are kind of related, so if it's okay, I'll just talk about them both at the same time. So last year, we had, in one of our early meetings, we talked about goals for the year and projects we wanted to work on, and I felt like it was a good thing to do because I think it did really guide us, and we can use the progress for our annual report, and we can also measure what we did, which has been a lot. It's really been a lot based on what our kind of vision was for the year. So I sent everyone the projects from last year, and I think Paul had said that at our first January meeting or our second January meeting, depending on what's on the schedule, we can go over what our goals are for 2023 and also kind of go over what we achieved in 2022, and that will help with our annual report. So I am going to be working on the annual report over the break. If anyone has any, I say over the break, but there's really no break for us, but it's really for other people. You know, like the children get the break, but over their break, I'll be working on that. And if you have items for it, please just send it to me, pictures, anything you want in there in particular about what we did in 2022. I'd love to put it in there. And Ed, at the last meeting, we were talking about there's no like strict time frame, but maybe we could go to one of the council meetings and do a presentation about the Environmental Commission, you know, just like our annual report, what we did over the year, 10 minutes or something. It doesn't have to be early on, it can be whenever. So I think that would be nice.
Okay, very good. Questions, feedback? All right, let's move on to, I guess we go down to anti-idling ordinance revision. I guess we've already talked some about that. Is there more?
There's just a little bit more. So, so our attorney, our township attorney, has been reviewing our draft anti-idling ordinance. The first draft we put in, he wanted us to reduce it down a little bit because instead of reiterating the law, he wanted us to really just reference the law, which makes a lot of sense. And I did kind of get some background on it, and it makes a lot of sense, is that if we are repeating the law and then the law changes, our ordinance actually is not any longer in conformance with the law. So it's really better to just put an ordinance together that's basically references everything. So we cut it down a lot. We put in definitions that we thought were relevant and things that we thought were relevant. However, the attorney still thinks we're still putting too much of the law into the language. So his recommendation is we just put in the ordinance what is different and specific to Franklin, like the list of priority sites that we said we're going to be working on, increase requirements for signage, and then just make reference to the citation for the law. So it'll actually be a very short ordinance, so that's one way to do it. The other way to do it is to actually maybe think about amending or making an amendment to the sign ordinance where we require the anti-idling signs in the signage ordinance instead of doing a separate anti-idling ordinance, or maybe doing both. I'm not sure how we want to proceed, but it does make sense. If any changes are made to the anti-idling law and we keep referencing it in our ordinance can become ineffective, and then it's going to be constant updates. So that was the most recent that I heard. So I can go back and just remove most of the language, make a reference to the citation, and put in information about, you know, one thing we wanted to do above and beyond the ordinance was have draft a priority sites list every year and things like that. So we can just reference that. Or we can maybe rework what we're thinking and do an anti-idling resolution and then amend the signage ordinance. That's another way, although it wouldn't address the priority sites. However, we could build that into our work plan. So those are like just feedback for right now.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see how we go about that with the signage part of it. I mean, the signs themselves have to be written exactly based on DEP requirements.
Right.
But we want to talk about where they need to be placed on sites as I addressed in the plan that we talked about earlier tonight. And does that mean taking out the definitions where the definitions are the exact same as they are in the DEP regulation? I think there might have been one change in the definition, if I remember correctly, but other than that, if everything is the same as in the DEP in subchapters 14 and 15 of the DEP regulations, then it shortens it. That's fine.
Okay.
And I think if we kept it out of the sign ordinance, it keeps the enforcement portion alive and well. You put it inside the sign ordinance, who enforces the sign ordinance?
Well, so we don't actually enforce the anti-idling, but the planning board or the zoning board, planning board really would review the sign specifications that are submitted and like
Right.
the construction details, so that, we could put that detail in the ordinance. So I don't know if that's,
Are the lawyers going to tell us which way it's going to be, or?
well, I think that really the biggest thing right now is that we can't just, refer to the language that's already existing, because it's just too, so if we do an anti-idling ordinance and we just refer to the citation, the ordinance might just be like, we have an anti-idling ordinance, here's the citation,
Yeah.
and there's not going to be much else in there unless we change how we do it. So like I said, one way is to amend the sign ordinance under the land development chapter, and then we could do an anti-idling resolution. We could build in doing the priority list as part of our work plan, or we could try and do an ordinance, but it's just going to be very short and sweet, so. Did you have a comment,
But
Ed?
surely we want to specify where the sign should be,
Mm-hmm.
which probably is not in the state law,
Right.
or at least we would be more extensive than
Right,
the state
right.
law.
You're right, yes, and we could do that in the sign ordinance. We could say you have to have this many anti-idling signs, they have to be at these locations, and see the construction detail for the sign spec, just like we would have in all of our land development, there's, specs for everything. So we could say, here's the exact language that has to be on, here's the exact, size of the sign and location of the sign.
I'm just amused in most of the sign ordinances, it's putting maximum number on
Right,
signs,
right.
and here it would be putting a minimum
Right,
number
right.
on.
Yep, you're right. Did you want to, I think.
We would do those specifications in an ordinance or a resolution?
Well, if we were proposing to amend the sign ordinance, we'd have to do the same. It would be amending the sign ordinance that we have. So like we're amending the tree ordinance, and
Right.
we would add that detail in there.
Okay.
In our proposed anti-idling ordinance, we do have the detail in there.
Right,
We do
right.
have it in there, and we have it in English and Spanish in there. So we would just put that in as well.
Is it part of the master plan at all,
The anti-idling,
where we want it? Anti-idling signs.
I think that's.
Maybe
yeah.
something for consideration down the road. I
Yeah.
don't know. But that we want to,
Yeah, it's a little more of a code issue, but.
Okay.
So it sounds like we're going to get feedback from, well, I'll ask it as a question. Are we going to get feedback from the attorney where we can look at his comments and then revisit the ordinance that we proposed, and then see where we can come to some kind of, I don't know if it's middle ground or it's going to be closer to what the attorney wants,
Yeah.
but it's still, hopefully we can get have the opportunity to provide input after we see his comments.
I think, well, that's really the only comment. So I think the next step would be, if we want to go forward with the ordinance, I can remove all the language that is duplicative to the state's law, and then I can show it to you all, and we can look at what we're left with, and then say, you know what, we do want to proceed this way, or we don't want to proceed. So maybe I'll do that. I'll take everything out. Like, I'll save the old copy, of course. I'll make a new one where I take everything duplicative out, and I'll show it to you at the next meeting, and if it's,
When you say you're going to take it out, can you just cross it out but leave it in there so we see what
sure,
has
yeah,
what has
yep.
been is being removed,
Yeah, I
and
can do
then go
that.
from there?
Yeah,
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can do that.
Just a point, as I recall, references are often put to such and such law as amended, and this is the provision that adjusts when the state law adjusts.
Oh, right, okay, yeah, that's a good point. Okay, so I'll do that, and then I'll bring the updated one.
Quick question.
Yeah.
So, like a dog with a bone on this, citizen enforcement, is that allowable? Are we able to do that? I know it's up to the Department of Health, and we contract with Somerset County. Can they also, create a provision for that?
I don't know, Arnie, you probably
if-
know better.
And if,
I think we went through this exercise. That would be lovely.
I'm very supportive. If we're not legally allowed to, then we have to go to Trenton and change the law, which
Yeah.
I think we
yeah, I don't know
would
whether
try to
it's at
do.
the state level, but I mean, New York City has done it at the city level. In an informal conversation with the township attorney, he was open to discussing that.
If it's legal, I think we should keep it on the table. Can you check that when you're going back and forth with them?
Yep.
At least so we know, and then we can have a discussion on the policy consideration if it's on the table.
Okay. Got it. Okay, I can do that. So for the next meeting, I'll bring you what's left, and then we'll look at it, and we'll see, how we want to proceed. And if we feel like the ordinance is it doesn't really do anything, if it's that, then we can always, like I said, we can do an anti-idling resolution, and we can build in the priority sites into our work plan, and we can amend the sign ordinance, or we can just amend the sign, there's still a lot of options that we can do that just might be more
If the state
effective.
would let us do citizen reporting, we could add that to the ordinance. That would give it some real teeth.
Yeah, yep, Okay, I will get that to you at the next meeting then.
Okay, if there are no more comments there, why don't we talk about Adopt a Drain program, get an update?
Okay, the last time I checked, we were still around the 90, 92 mark for the adopters. So far, Adopt a Drain is going good. I don't know if everyone in here knows about the Adopt a Drain program. So if you go on our website, I'll bring it up after when I'm done speaking. But if you go on our website, it's a free program, and basically it encourages everyone to adopt a storm drain by them, and it's very simple. All you have to do is clean the storm drain, not really clean it, you just have to sweep the top off. You don't have to really, clean it. But basically what it does is by having everyone clean off those drains and remove it of debris or leaves, it really prevents flooding, ponding, the backing up of the drain, the clogging of it, which ends up saving money and making everything just nicer and better. So basically what you would do is it takes less than 5 minutes. You choose a drain to adopt right by your house. You could choose, it's an interactive map, and once it's adopted, you really only have to report once a year. Again, it's like 3 questions online. You estimate how much you removed, and then we get that data at the end of the year, and we can use that to say, okay, we removed this much debris from our waterway, and that translates into this much of non-point source pollution removed. So it really helps us with that, and it's a great project for Girl Scouts or volunteer groups, and like I said, it's very easy. You get a nice sign if you do it. You can name it whatever you want. So there's a lot of benefits to it. You can name it after yourself.
The website is adoptadrain.org with dashes in between A and A. Adopt-a-drain.org, and you can search Franklin Township and open account, sign up.
Yep. And so I'll just tell you, because this is kind of interesting, so as of December 2nd, it's loading up, I'll just tell you that, so just since the program started, which was, when, beginning of the year, not even, a little after the beginning of the year, actually, no, it was more like the middle of the year, approximately 500 pounds of debris has been removed by these adopters, which is a lot, and it really helps out. So if you're interested, I'll put the website up on the screen. Stan gave it to you, I'll put it up on the screen, but, we encourage everyone to participate. And like I said, if you know any Girl Scouts or Boy Scouts or anyone looking for volunteer hours, this is a great way to get it.
Thank you. Talk now about the local health assessment.
Okay, so the local health assessment, the township is still working on that. Our survey is still up online, which I'll put that up as well. So basically, what we are trying to do is we've collected a lot of data from the census, the Centers for Disease Control, the state police, all kinds of sources, and we have environmental, NJDP, and we're basically putting all that data together with feedback from our Franklin Township residents through survey and focus groups that we're having. And what we're trying to do is figure out how does planning and zoning affect health, long-term, short-term, and so we're really trying to figure out, is there planning and zoning decisions or policies or theories, practices that have impacts on health. And so we're studying that by census, by ward. We're really studying it by census tract, but we're publishing the results by ward. So we are almost at the at the point right now where we're ready to write up the assessment, and that'll be basically a compilation of all the data that we found with some projections about what we think is going on, and then following that, we'll put together an action plan, and that's going to have specific projects about how we can help mitigate some of the problems that we found. So we're working on that. We have a grant, a technical assistance grant from Sustainable Jersey to do that work, and it's been going really well. So it's a good project. So far, the only other towns that have completed it in New Jersey are Woodbridge, and Princeton is almost done with theirs, and then us. So it's a good project. Yeah, and we're learning a lot from it. So yeah, we'll keep you posted. But I'll put that website up. If you haven't taken the survey yet, I'll put it up, and it's great to have everyone's feedback if possible.
We certainly encourage, citizen involvement, and if you're involved, you can help us. Okay, other old business as requested by commissioners.
So I have some update regarding the stream cleanup. Last time we set up April 15th, Saturday. We didn't set up the venue, the place. Lower Raritan Watershed Partnership was strongly advocating for Mile Run, which we have done last year. And just on that basis, I was reluctant. So I visited Seeley's Run, the place that we cleaned up 2 years ago. There is some garbage, waste. I even seen an idling truck, which from some magical reason ran away after seeing me, I guess. However, there was not too much garbage in the stream and really close to the stream. So I'm somewhat inclined that maybe we should do Mile Run, but I didn't do inspection of Mile Run by itself. So I'll give myself another few weeks. Next time we have meeting, when January what? 9? 9. Okay. I'll have plenty of time. Right. So I want to check out the Mile Run. I think, Ted, you suggested another section of Mile Run, which is closer to Hawthorne, right?
Well, two possibilities, either what you might call the middle of it, where there's access from Hawthorne, I never can remember whether it's street or avenue or whatever, from there down as far as DeRussie's, where DeRussie's Brook comes in, and there's a sewer line along that which actually allows access there, or from Easton Avenue up to DeRussie's Brook. And we have done cleanups in both of those areas in the past, the fairly recent past.
I just wanted to share a quick update. Stan and I attended the Rutgers New Jersey Climate Alliance annual conference a week ago Friday, and part of the conversations were about stormwater utilities, and I took a lot of notes. I'm really interested in us exploring that here in Franklin, and there are grants. Bob Smith made sure that I knew to check with the DEP, and Anjac offered to help us to do feasibility grants to see what's involved in putting in a stormwater utility in Franklin. One of the great things about that is it does require development of any kind to assess how much stormwater, and then it calculates a fee. And everybody has to pay a fee, even residents, quite modest. But the beauty of it is there's all sorts of incentives to offset the fee, which incent developers to put on green roofs, to put in rain gardens, to create bioretention basins. And there are a lot of places around the country that are doing this now. New Jersey has written the regulations. They are law. They're in effect since 2019. So I got enough names and phone numbers of the right people, so if we put that on our goals for 2023, we can start doing some exploring. It was time well spent at that conference.
Thank you, Irving, for reminding that. And just to add to what you said, Bob Smith made a comment about, he compared this regulation to the plastic bag ban, which is, if more towns are instituting the stormwater utility, then what can happen that the state will say, okay, we'll do something for the whole state. Because right now they're reluctant. They say, oh, well, we'll be, poked if we do it, and not too many townships are interested. So it's like the chicken egg stuff, but we should really start doing it.
You're both singing from like the something very motivational to me, because I worked on the law that was passed in 2019 to make it legal to create the utilities, and now we're meeting tomorrow to have a sort of deep dive for the next year planning for something called Flood Defense New Jersey, which is looking at helping towns to establish stormwater utilities, which are very beneficial, especially a place like Franklin. The weird shape that we're in is because we're surrounded by water along the very long edge of the municipality, not the 27 edge, which is just a road. Yeah, the whole way. Yeah, that whole way from Kingston all the way to, I guess, Landing Lane.
We're a
Right.
triangle shape. 2 of our 3 borders are water.
That's right. So that's that long edge, yeah. And the nice thing about a stormwater utility is, in addition to getting credits for doing something to reduce the amount of pollution of the stormwater that runs off and floods homes and businesses downstream, you can also levy fees onto tax-exempt properties. That's why it's a fee. So churches, which don't pay tax but have large parking lots, that's a source of revenue, which then we can start to put in the needed infrastructure. Like, we know what we need to do, but there's a shortage of money. And so that's much more equitable than what we're currently doing, which is, cleaning up storm drains with tax dollars, cleaning and maintaining basins with tax dollars. And the folks that are causing the problems are not chipping in, particularly if they're not paying taxes, because all the rest of us are shouldering an disproportionate burden of that. So I would be very, very happy to work on that. I think there's a lot of education that needs to happen, but the benefits far outweigh the costs, and a lot of really diverse communities as far as along the political spectrum, like Florida. There's 1,500 across the country, and they're legal in 33 states: Florida, Alabama, Ohio, Pennsylvania. In fact, there's this wonderful guy from Pennsylvania that talked about how Hershey Park, it's called Deary, Pennsylvania, where the Hershey Company is, and of course the little place you can go and visit, Hershey Park, and they were flooding inordinately because of development. They established a stormwater utility, and within a few years, the improvements they made it so that in Hurricane Ida, nobody flooded. They didn't lose any businesses or homes. And neighboring towns that didn't implement such measures were wiped out. And, along where I am on Canal Road, there's still neighbors that are out of their homes from Ida. So we know the problems, and we have to be part of the solution. So I think it would be exciting for me, and happy you give you my phone number to work on it.
Thank you.
Can I ask a quick question about that? I don't know if it's possible, are towns able to kind of do a regional stormwater utility? They are, so if we were to, not us in particular, but say towns wanted to participate, I guess the distribution of fees would be the tricky part, like who gets, right, but what if you're in, what if your development is actually causing flooding for the downstream?
Yeah, the law requires it to be equitable, meaning the more pollution you create, the more you pay.
Oh, okay.
So I know the mayor of Manville is interested, and they're downstream from us,
yes.
right? So we contribute to flooding in Manville. Manville can't deal and handle all and address all of its stormwater problems without upstream communities getting together.
Right.
And so, and it would be through an existing utility format. It wouldn't create new infrastructure. So,
Okay.
Water or sewer or utility, regional. It helps probably by county. These are all political boundaries. The nature
right.
doesn't know the boundaries we create.
Right.
So we just find a way to make it work. Yeah.
Yes, ideally, we would have one utility for the whole Millstone River basin, because, as I say, it's what Monroe is doing right now. That's where there's active development covering farmland that is adding to flooding in Manville and so forth. We have less of a problem because so much of our frontage on the canal and the Millstone River, then the land rises sharply, so relatively few houses are low enough, close enough to river level to flood, but it still affects them. And our biggest point of vulnerability is the businesses on the river side of Eastern Avenue. And I also wanted to just remember that when we had the Rutgers survey of where we should work on upgrading, rain gardens and green infrastructure, perhaps one of the best sites was the parking lot of the church on Franklin Boulevard. So churches would pay, but churches could also benefit.
Okay, thank you.
So just one last comment. So on the screen is the Adopt a Drain program, and this is what we were talking about. So I just typed in the Township buildings address, 475 Demont Lane. And if you look here, see all the yellow ones are unadopted drains. So if you wanted to click on it, it'll tell you this one's adoptable. You just click the button and you put some very basic information in, and that's it. It's just this one page. And then when you do clean it, you can clean it as often as you want. It's really recommended, especially before a big storm is coming. But if you can remember, they'll send you a reminder. Just put it in once a year even, what you clean up, and then, we get the data, and also we get the drains cleaned. So that's that. And then the community health assessment, if you go to our website, franklintwpnj.org, and you go under news, you'll see there's a link for the community health survey, and if you click the button right there that says click image for the survey, you can get into it, and it's really asking your perspective about what is the current health condition of your family, of you, of your neighborhood, what do you have access to, what do you feel you don't have access to, and we don't ask for your name or anything like that. So if you please can take that, that would really help out with our final assessment.
Thank you. We are ready to make a motion for open.
Second.
Been moved and second that we open the meeting to the public. All in favor, let it.
Oh, go ahead.
All in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, the meeting is now open to the public.
3 minutes.
Address and please speak directly. 5-minute time limit. I know, right?
During the township meetings, we get 5 minutes.
See how many people have.
Not that you.
Don't start me yet. Okay. Jan Brandt, 22 Bryant Court, and thanks, Tara, for getting this large auditorium for us today. Really appreciate it. I have a list of a few things here. One of them was to Ted and his notes from the last time he reviewed, Dr. Chase, reviewed this application. You mentioned that the setback was 50 feet from Mettler's Lane,
and the scenic corridor, and I didn't hear you mention anything about the scenic corridor. I did come in late, but I know that the structures, the 2 water basins, and I'll finish everything first, Ted, Dr. Chase. So I know that the 2 water basins and and also the 2 parking lots need to be set back, but actually Marlon's going to address that. The second thing I wanted to address was the pervious pavement. I know that on the application that we submitted, it's 55.6%, and also the roof, supposedly they're going to have equipment on the roof, according to Mark Healy's, like 4 feet of parapets. I'm probably pronouncing that wrong, so I'm not sure if they're going to be able to do anything as far as pervious pavement, but us who live like right across the way, we're like downstream of, all the water that comes off there. Also, I didn't see any trash cans on the plan. I don't know if that counts as pervious pavement as well. I'm wondering about the fire trucks and if there's enough movement. How big are the biggest fire trucks, in the different townships that would be coming this way, and do they have enough room to move around? The other thing is the traffic. I know that recently there's like 3 new warehouses all around Schoolhouse Road, and they might add up to close to a million square feet footage, as far as inside the warehouses, and then this would be another 250. So the traffic will be compounded. I want to compliment you all for setting a time limit for the hours, because I must say, I live right off of Metlers Road, and last week there was 2 nights I actually had to call the non-emergency number. It's not just the idling of trucks, but I could actually hear them unpacking the trucks and clanking. And on 70 Schoolhouse and also on Jensen Drive, I could actually hear it, and it's 700 feet away from my house. In addition, when I drove by there Friday night coming back from an event, there were 4 trucks idling on Jensen Drive. I did call the non-emergency number to report it, but I really like the idea, and I hope that this warehouse will be able to work within that parameter of the times that you mentioned, because if they're only 100 feet away from my bedroom windows, which face Metlers Road, that's going to be a real problem as far as the noise of, it's not just idling and the beep, 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 but also just unpacking their trucks. There's 69 bays, and you all mentioned something about, I didn't understand what you were talking about with the bays and all. Dr. Chase was talking about that. And the other thing I want to add, our homeowners association had selected a small group of people to be on a committee to mitigate the different things with the warehouse, and some of the mitigations are things that you all already had looked out for us, but the mitigations that were off-site had to do with that the township, Link Logistics was going to provide our community with extra dirt, berms, and trees, and there's a lot of us on Bryant Court that aren't really happy. We rather have the pushback that you all recommended, the setback with the scenic corridor, instead of being bargained off and have extra trees and berms on our site. We really don't want to have that as a resolution. There's many of us that are opposed to that. However, our homeowners association won't take a role in having us vote on it. They're making a decision. And one of the things I want to read to you that they wrote in this resolution, to the extent there is a shortfall in tree replacement on and off-site as described above, Link is required to make a payment in lieu of into the township tree fund. But the township agrees that such payment is waived, provided Link redirects these monies to Canal Walk for its use in mitigation measures to reduce impact of the Link warehouse development. So one of the things that they're saying that they're getting the residents is like, well, Link is going to give us extra dirt, and we're going to get all these trees, and we're going to be able to plant it. But as you all know, and you've mentioned, really trees and berms aren't really going to make less of an impact for that warehouse. And it looks like, and someone else is going to talk about it, but if that scenic corridor is respected like it should, the warehouse, there's really no space to put anything else. So anyway, thank you guys for everything you do. And I wanted to go first because I just drove in from Maryland and I really have to go to the bathroom, but I'm going to wait for your comments.
I just wanted to address one of the things that you said. You said you came late, and we talked early on, probably before you got here, about making a recommendation that the parking lot area be large enough. We're suggesting that the parking lot area at the warehouse be large enough so the trucks do not have to wait in line on the roads. They have to be on the property. Oh, you did hear that?
Yeah,
Okay.
yes,
Good. All right.
And
Did you also mention something, you said something about noise from the loading and unloading? Did you say you called the county health department about that?
I call the non-emergency.
You can also call the county health department because they enforce the noise regulations. They're supposed to come out 24/7. I'm not saying that they do, but I worked for Union County for 30 years doing the same thing that they do, and we responded 24/7 for things like that. It's my understanding they're supposed to also. Sure.
And Jan, your point about the accommodation to the developer to let trees and dirt be done on the Canal Walk property, thank you for bringing that to our attention. That doesn't solve our problem of stormwater management on site of the location. So we'll try to make that point with the engineering staff that that's really not helping us. We need to keep it right there.
I just want to address, so I looked at the plan, I just verified. So in the passenger parking lot, the aisle width is 26 feet, which is a general engineering standard for passenger cars in parking lots to make turning radius. Where the trucks are, it's 80 feet wide. So that is considered a wide enough berth for the turning radius. So according to what the standards are, they should be able to go in and make their full movement turn. Yes, yep. So a fire truck, the entrance, I believe, has to be, I want to say it's like 26 feet. It has to be for them. That's the minimum emergency width. So the fire truck will be fine. Yeah, they were saying they want to make sure that the trucks aren't queuing on the street, because then they're considering not idling because they're coming in, but there should be plenty of length and width for them to come into the site at least, so that they're not backed up on the street. Now, unless like an amount of trucks come that I'm not prepared for, basically, that I don't know about, but, and let me look here, I just want to make sure there was... Oh, for the anti-idling ordinance we're working on, we wanted to have standards for how often you have to have an anti-idling sign. And so Arnie was saying, maybe every 1 or every 2 or 3 bays there should be an anti-idling sign. They're proposing every 7 docks, right? Every 7 loading docks that they'll have an anti-idling sign. Our recommendation is it should really be every 2 or 3 loading docks.
But also, the truck driver is supposed to report to the office on site when they arrive, and there should be a sign on the door, the office door. There should be a sign at the entrance of the facility for them to see, and there should be signs throughout the parking area, so when they're driving around, they see them, or if they park their trucks, they see them there.
And then the last thing I just want to address on your list that I can is, so on the plan, it looks like there is pervious pavement proposed for where the passenger cars are. That whole lot is proposed to be pervious pavement, and that does help absorb some of the storm water. It basically can seep in there. It actually makes it so it doesn't ice as well, which is nice in the cold weather. They are proposing some grass pavers, which also is another, instead of water running off, it seeps in. They are, I had to look at the legend here, so over right here by this cul-de-sac, or it ends in the cul-de-sac by the, bless you, by the top warehouse up here. So see, it's this little area over here. Let me see what road it's on. Hold on, let me back up here. So Mettler's is up here. You're coming into the site. Here's the passenger lot. Here's the big warehouse, the 171,000 square foot. Then you have the other lot. Here's the driveway that ends in a cul-de-sac. And then if you look right over here, and right over here is some grass pavers, so that's, yeah.
Is that like 5 feet long?
That is, yeah. I'm not exactly sure, I could look and see, but that's the grass pavers that are proposed. But there is pervious pavement proposed for the passenger lot, and then where the trucks will be, which is these longer spots, is the heavy-duty concrete. These ones here, these are for the trucks. Now, trucks a lot of times can't park on pervious pavement because it's not stable enough for them, so, yeah.
So that's all, because I thought have that pervious pavement.
Yeah, most trucks can't park on pervious pavement because it's just not strong enough.
So are you all making recommendations about?
Well, we did make the recommendation for pervious pavement, I think, in the first one, and it looks like the entire passenger lot is pervious pavement, which is good, but I don't think that's a planning board issue about the pervious pavement for trucks. I think it's just that pervious pavement cannot be used with trucks from an engineering standpoint because the parking lot won't be stable. Is the heavy-duty concrete for the trucks. Yeah, yep. But for the passenger lot, all pervious pavement, so that's good.
And how about that?
The,
The money that.
what was your question about the tree fund? I'm sorry.
I had read that one of the mitigation OA is telling everyone is that money's going to come to us.
Oh, no, that'll go to the shade tree
Nice of
funds.
the
Yeah.
homeowners association to appropriate township money.
Yes.
Okay, so that in fact, in that resolution, that should be taken out of that resolution.
Well, yeah, so any money that is required of the developer to submit to the shade tree fund has to come to the township's shade tree
Okay,
fund.
so
Yep.
that's, the lawyer who wrote that should take that out.
Yeah, well, I mean, it won't be relevant, it won't be correct, basically, yes, so.
What I would imagine is that some lawyer, either for the developer or for the homeowners association, will propose this at the planning board hearing, which is not to say that we'll accept it, particularly since the money is supposed to go specifically to the shade tree fund. It could be spent on trees planted along Mettler's Road. And I just wanted to comment further about the grass pavers. From what I see, I think it's either the ramp going down into the detention basin there and the emergency spillway where if the detention basin completely fills up in a hurricane, it spills out over there and you have some degree of hardening of the spillway so that it doesn't just wash out.
That makes sense, yep.
Thank you. So
Okay.
summarize, so extra dirt and the berms are not funds really are coming to Canal Walk. Gotten a lot of us, as you could see, a lot of us worried tonight.
I look forward to your speaking at the planning board meeting.
Thank you, Jan.
Hi, Barlin Kwan, 28 Jay's Corner. Just to piggyback some of Jan's comments, with regards to the scenic corridor, I recently got an updated map of, I think, even this particular plan page with a outline of what the scenic corridor consists of in terms of a delineation line. And my understanding is that we have partial coverage outside of the allowable scenic corridor of 2 parking lots and 2 basins. And that one of the basins, which is actually abutting Schoolhouse Road, is completely outside of the zone. And the one that's on Metlers is probably about 1/3 to 1/4 of it in terms of coverage outside of the zone, and half of the parking lot on Schoolhouse, and about 1/8 of the parking lot on Metlers. And I know that Dr. Chase had noted that on the first review of the initial plans. These are revised plans. Are you going to comment on the fact that that these are outside of the ordinance as part of your review?
I mean, yeah, we'll definitely reference the scenic corridor. I think we need an updated copy then of the sheet that shows the delineation of it, or we could measure it. I mean, if it's clear that it's out there, then.
Yeah, this came directly from the engineer.
Okay, we can follow up with him.
I can, okay,
I
or
can
I
follow
can
up with
send,
him.
that's
Yep.
fine.
They show some measurements on the plan, like the corner of the building closest to Metlers Road is still, I think, 107 feet from Metlers Road, but that does leave, I guess, the corner, at least some of the entry road and some of the parking right at the top of what's on the screen within the 100 feet. I'd have to look again at the constructed wetland, as they call it. I think it's basically, yeah, there you can pretty much see the corridor there.
Yes, that's correct. They adjusted the building just ever so slightly to fit within the zone. That is correct. But my understanding is that, of the ordinance, is that all constructs, including parking lots and retention basins, are in violation of the.
I'm not sure about things like detention basins.
Well, they use mechanicals, I'm sorry, but they use mechanicals whether above or below ground. And so there are mechanicals in the basin, is what we understand it from the township. So anyway, if we can ask you to address that, that'd be terrific. I
focused on the landscaping plan rather than the drainage plan.
Okay.
We could definitely look and see, and if it's, overreaching, then we can make a comment, right? That it's encroaching in the scenic.
Yeah, I'll look again at the plans, particularly the drainage plans for what is within what appears to be within 100 feet of Metlers Road.
And I'll get that updated plan and I'll send it to you too, so you can have it to look at from there.
Yeah, well, I have all the plans
Okay.
that Paul picked up,
Okay,
the submission. I should have brought them tonight,
That's okay.
but I was focusing on remembering to pick up my plans for the next planning board meeting on Wednesday.
well, so we'll
Yeah,
definitely look
to be clear,
at it.
Dr. Chase, it's not in Link Logistics plans. This is a township engineer that actually took measurements and drew the scenic corridor line, a boundary line.
Yeah, so I'll get that
So-
from him and I'll send it to
Okay,
you.
if this is not in the plans,
It's
if you
not,
can
yeah.
get that.
The last question I have, very quickly, is I just want some clarity. You were talking about the berms and the fence and the trees. Are you strictly talking about on Metlers on the developer side, or are you talking about both sides?
I've only been talking, I mean, the only thing I've seen is what's in the developer's plan that is basically addressed to the planning board. I officially know nothing about any negotiations between the developer and the homeowners association.
Okay, thank you. And I'm sorry, last thing, I feel like Columbo. The last question I have is, with
Okay.
regards to the fire trucks coming in and out, would that take into consideration all the bays being active and having trucks in their bays if there were a fire? And the fire trucks needed to come through, and they needed to make turns?
Well, it's, the fire prevention officer reviews the access for fire trucks.
Okay.
That's what he makes reports on.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Joe Hoffman, 5 Congress Court. Two comments. One has to do with the noise that we discussed earlier. So I conducted some due diligence on this, and it was stated earlier that the 18-wheelers do not have those beeping mechanisms, and that's correct. As far as I know, as far as I could tell, they do not have those beeping mechanisms. The noise is coming from the forklifts that load and unload the 18-wheelers once they pull up to the bays. And I found out that there is new technology out there called white noise, which is much lower decibel and very focused on the danger zone, which is being adopted by more and more counties across the country. In fact, we had a meeting about two weeks ago with Bob Bornlacher, who is very familiar with this technology, and he echoed everything that I'm saying and also told us that there is a county in Maryland that now has mandated this technology, Montgomery County, and it was adopted, had to be adopted by all of the warehouses with these forklifts. So it's relatively cheap. Something you might want to consider is recommending that technology be employed for any individuals that lease these buildings and use those forklifts, because that's where the noise is coming from. Today's technology emanates in all directions. It's very high decibel and very, very annoying as well. The second comment I had to make is the idling ordinance. For the past 6 weeks, I happened to be on Cottontail between 5:30 and 6 a.m., and I saw between 5 and 8 rigs lined up on Cottontail waiting to get into Ferraro Foods. The one rig attempted to pull in but didn't quite make it, and he was sticking out about 75% of the lane that I was in. Had it not been for my wife, I would have hit it broadside because the sun wasn't up, it was dark, and there was no lights on the side of the truck. They're on the back, they're on the front, and no reflective tape. And I tell you, I came within feet of hitting that rig. So that is a major concern of mine. That's twice now that I've observed that on Cottontail, during those hours. But if you do are able to get approved those limitations on hours, that would help. But regardless, I think the forklift technology should be employed, 24/7.
If I could just address the idling situation. You said that they were out on the road.
Yes, so they were lined up on the right. I was going towards Weston Canal from Schoolhouse.
Right.
And they were lined up as I was going that way, on the left-hand side.
Right. So that was why I suggested in the beginning that the warehouse that's being built, if it's built, have enough capacity in their parking area so trucks do not have to line up on the road because of the reasons that I gave before, less polluting, doesn't clog up the roads. I think that should be a requirement in there, but we only make recommendations. Trucks that are on the road are not considered idling, but when they get into the parking lot area, if they're waiting in the parking lot, they're idling if it's more than 3 minutes, and they have to shut their engines off. The other technology that you talked about, the white noise, that's something new to me. It's good to hear about that. I'm glad to hear about that. As long as it's, these are, as I said before, they're OSHA regulations.
It's OSHA approved, yeah.
Right, and if it's OSHA approved, then it works. I think that's great.
No, I appreciate that, your comment about, allowing the trucks to pull in. I was just thinking, with the size of these rigs and how much tarmac they're going to need to handle even 4 or 5 trucks, because they're, 83 feet long or whatever. But yeah, if we can get that done, that would be awesome.
If the planning or zoning board or whoever this is going in front of who makes the final decision makes that a requirement, that might mean that
Yeah,
the
yeah.
footprint of the building might have to be smaller than they want it.
That's exactly right.
And if that's the case, so be it.
Tara, can we add the white noise comment? Yeah.
The company's called Brigade. They're one of the companies that invented the BBC-TEK is the technology, and it's trademarked. So.
Thank you very much for that.
I have it on my list.
Sarah.
Oh, yes, thank you.
Michael Bryan, 40 Bryan Court. In regards to the scenic corridor, I've heard some comments from people on the committee at the start of the meeting of what could be done, built on a scenic corridor and what could not be done on a scenic corridor. I believe I heard a comment that fences cannot be built on scenic corridor. So
That is, I specifically noted that in the ordinance.
okay, we have our HOA have a committee negotiating with the builder, and they're proposing that a fence be put on the entire length of Metlers Road, and both parties have agreed to it. You saying that this cannot be done? On the Canal Walk side, they have an agreement with Link Logistics. They're going to bring it to us Thursday night. They are putting a 6-foot fence on Metlers Road on the entire length of the Canal Walk property that is opposite the new building.
My question for you is, if that was to happen, who would be required to maintain that fence?
Well, I don't know, I cannot answer that, but the question is, that's a mute question if they can't build a fence.
Right, that I don't know.
Well, I'm sorry, I don't know his name.
Chase.
Dr. Chase has said specifically, you cannot build a fence on a scenic corridor. Where could we find that in writing?
The code up on the screen is.
So we could say on Thursday night that this is the code and we got this information from this committee.
So if you go onto our website, on the main page, if you go to municipal code, let me go back and, so you go to municipal code, and then let me go back and show you from the beginning, just so you know. Well, let me start from here. So you're on the main website here. If you go up here to municipal code and click that, it'll bring you to all of our codes, and when you go into search.
Yeah, John knows how to do
Okay,
it.
yeah, and if you just search for scenic corridor, it's 112, section 112-201. I'm going to read through it while we're talking, but if you look in there, you'll be able to see what is allowed, what's not allowed, what is the measurements, but I'll look while we're talking, and if I find it before the end of the meeting,
Okay.
I'll tell you.
One other question. I've heard a lot of recommendations that this commission is coming up with, and frankly, I agree with them, and I think most of us here do. When will the planning board receive your recommendations?
So I try and send them the next day. I try to draft the report based on Ted's and Dr. Chase's, in this case's, recommendations. However, we do need to look at that updated plan still. So, I mean, by the end of the week, for sure, they'll get when is the meeting? It's on the upcoming
January
meeting.
4th.
Oh, yes, they'll get it by the end of the week.
Is there dialogue between your commission and the planning board? You just send them the report?
We send them the report in writing, and I let the planning board secretary know that it's coming. It gets included in the planning board members' packet, so they get the plans, they get the
Okay.
report from us, the fire prevention official, they get all those reports to review in tandem with the report.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
And I am the Environmental Commission representative on the planning board.
Yes.
Janice Jacobs, 5 J's Corner, and also Canal Walk. Okay. I just had a question about the noise ordinance. I know New Jersey has a limit on sound, on noise of, I think it's 65 decibels and 50 from 10 p.m. to 7 a.m. And a truck is 80 some odd decibels. So I don't know if we can use that in any way to help with the noise control, and I don't know if there's any ordinance we can pass in our town to help protect the residents, you know, within X hundred feet of,
Are you talking about trucks that are on the road or on the facility? What are you talking about?
no, for the facilities specifically.
Well, you're right about the hours of operation, 10 p.m. to 7 a.m. It's 50 decibels and 65 decibels during the day. Trying to remember. I've been retired for about 5 years now, and I don't enforce the regulations anymore. But if I believe once the trucks are on the facility, they become a part of that facility, and they are regulated. But that's a question that you'd have to ask the health department if you're calling them.
I think the measurement is supposed to be at the boundary of the facility in question. You know, it's not up against the engine of the truck.
The measurement of the noise is at the property line of the person that's complaining about the noise. So if you called it in, the inspector would come to your property and take sound level readings on your property at the closest point to the facility. On the property of the facility. Right. So.
Great. Just one comment. I pass by every morning or twice a week when I do go to office, and I pass by on Cottontail. I go up Cottontail, and they're building that, you know, one of the other warehouses is almost done. That warehouse is flooded every time it rains, that property, and it's not even finished yet. There's just so much water just laying there. I don't know if anyone's gone to the site after a rain, but it hasn't even been, I don't know, it looked like it was paved, and then I don't know what they're trying to do with the water there, but there's so much property that's being covered over in this town that the water mitigation is.
We're paving paradise, putting up
Yes.
a parking lot.
Yes. So just a comment. I know you're trying to do what you can do. I just see all disappearing, and it's a shame if we would lose those wetlands that are behind that property on B9.
Shirley Tallman, 57 Tallman Lane. I'm at a disadvantage tonight because I don't have my glasses. I left them in the car. so I'm going to kind of wing this, but I have a question for you folks. Dr. Chase, you brought it up and you got me thinking here tonight. Berms. Do berms not, if there is not adequate drainage, create flooding? When you have a berm along Metlers, at Metlers Lane, at Canal Walk, where you know we have a berm that runs the length of it, and beyond Weston, and then you're going to put a berm across the street, or at least propose a berm there. So you've got a funnel, do you not? Water's funneling right onto Metlers. And I don't know, because I haven't looked into it, but do we know that there's adequate drainage on Metlers at this point? Do we even handle 2 berms? It's just a question. It just came to me tonight because I don't know how many of you were here when the application for Canal Walk was being discussed. But somehow the developer of Canal Walk was allowed not to put drainage, but to use swales. I had never heard of swales. It is the most idiotic idea I have ever heard of, especially in a 55 and over community where people might be a little out of balance now and then walking in their backyard. So what do we have? We have this ground shaped like this. And the water is supposed to run from the back to the front and into the street and drain. Well, my mom bought a home there where there is no drain on the street. Now, how does that happen? And I don't want to belabor the point, but when you know about this stuff, and then you're hearing this stuff, you begin to wonder, how smart are we? What are we doing here? I could be wrong about berms, but I don't think they're a good thing.
So the only thing I can say about a berm as it's proposed here, now we can't speak to it as once it's constructed and in practice because we're not, we won't be there. But by definition, a vegetative berm is supposed to have proper drainage and be designed in accordance with standards that provide that drainage and divert the excess stormwater to like an underground trap or storage area that then slowly releases the water. Now, if that's done properly, it should not cause flooding. A berm, by definition, should not cause flooding, but we can't, predict if it's going to fail or if it's done. I would imagine it would be done in accordance with the plans that were submitted, so it should not, by practice, cause flooding. That it really should not.
Tara, right?
Yeah.
I appreciate that, but past experience tells me I don't expect anything. And I think some hard questions need to be asked. And I know that you folks won't be there directly, but I know Dr. Chase will, and perhaps some others can get the word into somebody else's ear that we need to be looking really hard at this stuff because we're living with it now. And we had to fight like hell to get drains put in the backyards of those homes that I'm talking about in Canal Walk because they were flooding and breeding mosquitoes, and it was beyond belief. But history has a way of repeating itself, right, Dr. Chase?
Well, this is basically an engineering matter. It's the township engineer is supposed to check all of these details, and currently the township engineer is an outside engineering firm. During the lengthy construction of Canal Walk, we had several, well, at least 2 in-house engineers. It's possible that Jim Pettit missed something, say, 20 years ago.
Quite a bit. Quite a bit. Okay, well, believe me, I support everything that you folks are doing. It's a pleasure to come to your meetings, as I've said before, and anything you can do to help us, and I know you will. We really appreciate it. Thank you.
Sudhir Shah, 74 Bryant Court. I've got a number of questions, so I may cross the limit, so I'll raise the question first, and maybe then you can answer the things. You talked about sound levels, 50 decibels, 60 decibels, and on the property line. Maybe can you loan us some of those monitors and put it on the Jane's property so we can measure the sound level now and even during the construction time frame, okay? So we know that, if the sound level goes up, we know who to complain and when to complain. And you guys can look at the monitor based on those things, that how often the sound level has gone up during daytime or nighttime and whatnot. Okay, that was one question. Second question was related to the tree replacements and tree planting and various funds and whatnot. Do you have any kind of estimate in terms of what's the percentage of trees we have lost in last few years because of all these developments here, okay? Third thing that I've read it, I didn't read the full article, I just read the headlines, that there was some study was done in the Franklin Township that people living in the south of Franklin Township, their age level is much higher compared to people living in the northern side. And we are on the northern side of Franklin Township, okay? So if you can shed some lights on it, what's the difference? Because you're talking about filling out surveys on the health surveys and whatnot. Related to roof and solar and green roof rather, okay? Can you explain to us what are you really requesting builders to do in terms of the solar roof and whatnot, okay? Because I think a goal of everybody should be that we should be carbon neutral and save the energy rather, okay? And let's see here. And the last thing I have, which is, you may call me crazy rather, but everybody talks about carbon neutral. Various corporation, airline industry sets up the goal that we need to go carbon neutral 10 years, 20 years down the road, okay? Maybe Franklin Township should take a lead and say we should go carbon neutral by so-and-so years, okay? Because you did get an award 2 weeks ago for doing some wonderful work. Maybe you can take a lead in the nation, okay? Going carbon neutral at the Franklin Township level.
So I can respond about a few things that your questions were. So do we have data about tree loss in Franklin Township? So we're working on updating our tree canopy calculations. That's one of the things that we talked about in our joint meeting. So that'll give us an idea of what our tree canopy was in 2016, was the last time it was done, and what it is now. It's not 100% accurate about exactly how many trees we've lost, but it'll kind of give us an idea. And we're hoping that'll be part of our work with our tree ordinance overhaul. So when we have that, we'll share it for sure. Actually, we talked about the methodology for doing it. That's what we're trying to figure out. What's the best methodology?
Which is nice. And then you have to decide what sort of action you're going to take in future.
Yes.
If this loss is so much.
Absolutely. That's why we're doing the overhaul, the tree, I shouldn't say, but review of the tree removal ordinance to see how we can make that better. The life expectancy data you brought up, that's part of the local health assessment that I talked about before, and that involves taking the survey. But that information came from the census, and also from kind of combining that with data from the Center for Disease Control. And what we did find out is that in Somerset County, the southern part of Franklin Township, which is Ward, I always get it backwards, Ward 1, right? I feel like it should be 5 because it's on the bottom, right? But it's Ward 1. That area has an average life expectancy of 88.1, which is actually the highest life expectancy in all of Somerset County, not just in Franklin. It is the highest in Franklin, but in all of Somerset County. And then we found out that wards 4 and 5 have a lower life expectancy. It tends to be around anywhere between 77.5 and 79. It is only a 6-mile difference, and that's one of the reasons it's important for us to do this local health assessment, because we're trying to understand why. Is it environmental impacts? Is it planning impacts, zoning impacts? What is the reason? Is it income? Is it, what is, and so the government can only do so much as it relates to health, which is interesting because a lot of the government's policies and programs have an impact on health. By doing this local health assessment, hopefully we can kind of target some projects, like, for example, increasing tree planting in some areas or preserving parks in a different type of way so that we can have more green space, or, is transportation a problem? So looking at those issues and figuring out how can we help to kind of be more equitable. That's the goal of that whole project, is achieving health equity. So that's background.
Does that kind of
Sorry. Go ahead.
does that kind of information will go into the master plan that you have, which gets revised every 10 years? That because of this master plan, the life expectancy has gone down or gone up, rather?
So the data that we collect can be used in the master plan update. It also can be used to inform a lot of our master plan elements. It can be used to inform some of our policy decisions or our zoning. So yes, if we, when we have that data, I'm sure that it'll be considered as part of the master plan update. And it's going to be a lot of data, which is great. And then you had a question about the solar requirements, the solar ready. So in July of 2021, right, or was it 2022? 22. A law was passed that any warehouse over 100,000 square feet must reserve 40% of its roof area to be solar ready. So it has to have the proper roof structure to put solar panels on. That's a requirement of the state of New Jersey. So when we have a warehouse that meets the requirement for square footage, we automatically put that in our review. We put what the calculation is. We also, though, do advocate strongly every time for green roofs and for cool roof technology or anything we can to make the roof, more sustainable. So, and Robin can probably talk to it more. She and Paul, our chairman, are trying to work on a green roof ordinance, and they're kind of in the beginning stages of that.
So just a follow-up question on the solar roof, rather, is that you are requesting builder to put a solar roof up to 40% or whatnot. But question is, do they have some sort of a time limit by which they need to do that? And my recommendation would be that do not give a certificate of occupancy until the solar roof is in place and working.
The state regulation right now says that the construction of the building has to be solar ready. It does not require them to put on a solar roof. And often it's a developer or an owner that builds the building and then someone later buys it. It has to be ready so that hopefully when there is a requirement down the line, they can't say, oh, our roof can't handle it. So right now, step one is the state has required buildings over a certain size be strong enough to handle a solar roof. The work that we are about to begin doing is to examine how to take that further, because the state requirement is only that. And it's of a larger footprint. We're looking at doing it at probably the 20,000 square foot building or bigger. And it would be making requirements of what goes on the roof, not just that the construction be strong enough. But we're in the very early stages of looking at all the different ways to do that, what's been successful, what hasn't, so we can learn from other municipalities' mistakes.
So this is what I know, and you may have a better idea in terms of Amazon promised that they will have a solar loop. They didn't do it for a year or two, and then eventually it was in some sort of agreement between Amazon and Township. And I think mayor or someone indicated, guys, you still don't have a solar roof, and they did put a solar roof later on, at Amazon. So in the questioning for the B9 or any other warehouse, you should make a requirement. They should have a solar roof.
It is not
beyond the state requirement.
There is no ordinance in Franklin yet that requires a solar roof. And we are starting to work on examining what would be smart for Franklin, but there is a requirement that the building be ready to put a solar roof on.
So when we respond in our memos, we cite the legislation that says you have to have this solar ready. However, we really suggest that you do a green roof for the remainder, or the cool roof technology, or put this, so we make sure we put that in there. However, we can't require.
Understood.
Not yet. Yeah.
Chance for an ordinance, right?
Yeah, trying, Thank you.
Okay.
If I could just address one thing. I'm sorry, I didn't catch your name at the beginning.
Sudhir Shah. Sudhir, Shah, S-H-A-H.
Okay, Mr. Shah, thank you. You said at the beginning we might call you crazy, so I'm not going to call you crazy.
No, that's fine.
All right. The trees, the canopy, in 2016, at the urging of the Shade Tree Commission, the council did a proclamation that they wanted to increase at that time, the tree canopy in Franklin Township was estimated at 39%. That was after a study done. And the idea was to bring it up to 42%. So that's something that's being worked on. I think Tara alluded to that. In 6 years, I don't think we've made much progress. Probably going backwards, but that's yet to be seen. So with us having the developers, instead of paying $30 a tree, paying $300 a tree, and hopefully going from 4 inches to 2.5 inches, hopefully all of this means the developers are going to be putting a lot more money into the Shade Tree Trust Fund, which hopefully then goes to planting a lot more trees throughout Franklin Township.
Okay.
If I might, your last comment about us setting a goal to be carbon neutral.
Right.
Thank you very much for doing that. We are having a goal-setting meeting in 2 weeks, and we can talk about that. It is totally new language for the council, and I would encourage all the citizens in Franklin who really care about this to speak to your ward council person and help build the education level and the awareness level of the council. I don't think we have to worry too much about Ed. I think he's there. But there is a general lack of urgency and awareness. So we have no teeth. We're a commission appointed to advise. In fact, I think most of you probably have more power than we do. So please keep asking and keep nudging us.
Will do.
And just to pitch into what Robin said, if we want to be serious about getting carbon neutral, corporations, warehouses, they will not get us if we think that somebody else is responsible of carbon zero. Each of us, all of us, we have to dip our own skin into that. And I can give you a list. This is not choose one of the list, all of them.
Yeah.
You have to make your own energy, either on the roof or solar, community solar or something. You have to drive electric. You have to have a heat pump. You have to be vegetarian. You have to divest your retirement income from oil companies, okay? Do not fly. Do not take cruises. And minimize travel in general. And I can come up with much longer list. And so it's getting tough. And grow your own food on your backyard as much as you can. Get hands and things like that, you know.
Thank you. I'm aware of some of them. I've seen that, okay? And that's why people are putting solar roofs there, okay? What about loaning the equipment to Jane for sound monitoring, okay? For monitoring the sound with this 50
For the noise monitoring.
Noise monitoring, yeah.
I don't know that the township has noise monitoring equipment, sound level meters. You could ask Bob Vornlocker if they do. I know they used to.
Okay.
But we don't have a health department anymore, so I don't know if we'd have them. Possibly the police use them, but you could also, Ted shaking his head saying yes. So it's a question as to whether they would lend them to you.
Okay.
It wouldn't have any legal ramifications to what you find, but at least would give you an idea of what you're getting on your property. So whether you get the meter from the township or if you get it from the Somerset County, but there's also apps that you can download on your phone where you can take sound level readings. You know, the sound level meters that are used by the county and by Franklin Township are usually between $2,000 and $3,000 meters, and they have to be calibrated every time they use and have to be recalibrated at a certified lab every year. So they're very precise pieces of equipment. My point being that even though you can get an app and use it on your phone, it's not going to be as precise as one of the meters that you get at one of the health departments, but it would give you a general idea of what the sound levels are.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, Arlene Leviton, 1201 Enclave Circle. I don't have a question, I just want to tell you an experience. Last week sometime about between 3:30 and 4 o'clock in the morning, I heard trucks. I had no idea. My building is about half a mile in from Schoolhouse Road and less than that from Mettler's, I guess. So I heard a lot of noise. They were trucks. And I couldn't imagine that at 3:30, quarter to 4 in the morning. I didn't know what the police would do, had no idea, but I did call. But since they put me on hold, I just figured, let me call the front gate. I called the front gate, and the gentleman at the front, I asked him, did you let some trucks in, or were there trucks that came in here just recently? He said, no, not at all. I said, oh my gosh, I can't imagine. I'm hearing trucks, and I'm in the condos further in, not the ones at the front. And he said, you're probably hearing them from all the other warehouses around. And then I said, to myself, oh my gosh, I can't picture our future here. That's it.
Public session.
I second that.
Okay, been moved and second that we close the public session. All in favor, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? Aye. Okay, now,
Thank you all.
yeah, we need another motion if that we're ready to
Move
do
to
it.
adjourn.
Second.
Okay, been moved and second that we adjourn the meeting. All in favor, let it be known by saying aye. All opposed? Meeting adjourned. Thank you. Thank you.